Real Estate Radio 94.9 News Now, stimulating talk. Byron Lazine and Chaz Cook from the One Team at William Raveis Real Estate. Reach out to us at oneteamct.com. That's ONETEAMCT.com. Also have with us Brian Skelly from William Raveis Mortgage. ScheduleLoanAppointment.com for all your housing financing needs, whether that's a refinance or a new purchase conversation. ScheduleLoanAppointment.com to chat with Brian Skelly. All right, we just went over the jobs report last segment. If you missed last segment, you want the update on that, every Monday we post the replay to this show over at CT Real Estate Radio, wherever you listen to pods. You can also go onto the One Team CT YouTube channel to get clips from the show. 12,000 jobs were added, well short of the 100,000 estimate, well off of some of these big headline numbers that we've seen in recent months, most of which over the last 12 months have been revised down if jobs have been overstated. And why is jobs important? It's important because it's one of the driving forces that impacts the 10-year, the 30-year fixed mortgage rates follow the 10-year. And if we want to get back to 6% like we had in September, or really close to 6%, actually, in fact, Brian Skelly was getting some people locked in at 5.99 and 5.9 during the month of September. If we want to get back there, we need the 10-year to drop back down below 4, certainly, probably at that 3.8 level. What we saw in September was an uptick in pending sales. What we've seen in October with higher rates and rates that have touched 7% as recently as this week is a recession in activity in the real estate market. So the economy is impacted greatly by these rates, which does impact the ability for people to obviously buy homes and keep a stable housing market moving. So we're going to get into some predictions here. We're not going to predict any winner on Tuesday, but we are going to get into some of the predictions and the forecasts, rather, that analysts have for the real estate market heading into 2025. But before we do that, I do have one vote I want to cast. It's the most important vote of our time, and that's for Service Station Equipment. As your only residential tank specialist here in the state of Connecticut, reach out to Service Station Equipment before the winter kicks in. If you have any tanking needs, whether that be a ground removal oil tank that shouldn't be there, don't keep that dirty little secret, that skeleton in the closet or underground. Get that oil tank out, remove it, do it properly. Service Station Equipment has all of the regulations in place. They deal with the city, the state, they do it right, and they do a very clean job. Service Station Equipment, your residential tank specialist, also installs new state-of-the-art, highest technology residential oil tanks. If you need a new one now, call Service Station Equipment, 1-800-801-TANK, 1-800-801-TANK, and Dougie, the tank man, will come get you straightened out on all of that. All right, what do we have for forecasts, Chaz, for 2025? What could the market look like overall in 2023, 2024? The U.S. housing market's been in a recession. The economy hasn't been, but the housing market, by definition, has been in a recession. Connecticut is the lowest inventory state of all 50. We also have some of the greatest appreciation for homeowners. Homeowners are really winning in the state of Connecticut. Those who want to purchase a home are finding it obviously very difficult to do so. What are some of the projections on the overall macro market? And then we can maybe tie that into what we think here in Connecticut.
Absolutely. So Mortgage Bankers Association, that's who let out their most recent predictions for 2025, is forecasting that total mortgage origination, meaning how many new mortgages will be created, that volume will rise to 2.3 trillion, up from 1.79 trillion in 2024. That's a big increase in origination and new mortgages. Like, I was trying to think quick math. I couldn't do the math in my head, but that's a huge number.
It is. How's that make you feel, Brian? You like that?
Good.
And purchase originations are also expected to increase by 13%, totaling 1.46 trillion by 2025. And they are predicting, Mortgage Bankers Association is predicting that rates are expected to settle at 5.9% with affordability challenges continuing as younger buyers enter the market. Do you think we can get under 6 by the end of next year, Skelly?
I think it's a reasonable prediction. I mean, I think if I was forced to predict what was going to happen, I would probably say something similar to that. You know, whenever we have these discussions, I always like to be the guy to remind everybody that forecasting what's going to happen in the economy is an extremely difficult thing to do. And a lot of these forecasters are wrong all the time. If you look at what happened last year, or even just in the last 60 days, you know, back in January and December of 10, 11 months ago,
we had people saying they were going to be in the 5s now.
They did. The prediction, the forecast was almost exactly the same.
Right.
You know, they were saying, at the end of 2024, rates are going to be 5.9 or thereabouts. And we ended the month of October over 7%. So, you know, it all depends on the news and even the jobs report. You know, we just talked about that in the last segment. It was way off. The actual numbers were way off from the forecast. So, I mean, I think as long as the economy does what they're expecting it to do, then I think this is a pretty reasonable forecast. And we were just at, close to 6%. You know, as Byron said, it kind of briefly almost dipped down into the 5s. I mean, there was a couple people that got rates in the 5s in September for like a week before that job report came out and messed everything up and caused the rates to go back up. So those are my thoughts.
Yep.
But the safe thing to do is, if you need a place to live, if you just got your offer accepted, the markets are definitely volatile. So the safe thing to do is once, buy a house, lock in your rate. Rates go down, you refinance. If they go up, you'll be glad you locked it in.
Well, that's actually a great point, because here's one of their forecasts that I do hope happens. They're expecting the total loan count, mortgage originations, I can't say that word today, to increase by 28% to 6.5 million loans in the coming year, up from the 5.1 million expected in 2024. So that would mean another 1.4 million transactions or buyers finding a home in 2025, which is something we can really use, especially here in Connecticut.
Yeah, that number doesn't surprise me either. I mean, the other thing, refinances have been basically non-existent for the last couple of years with rates being higher. So if rates do go down to the 5s, there'll be a lot of opportunities for folks who bought a house in the last year or two to refinance, go from, rates in the 6s and 7s into the 5s. So that'll contribute to mortgage activity. And also, the first half of the year was pretty busy, but the second half of this year has been a little slow for mortgages. So there's definitely room for growth.
Yeah, if the rates get into a 5 handle, even leading with a 5, you're just going to see more activity, which if for Connecticut, what we need when I say more activity is we need more sellers entering the market. We have the lowest housing inventory, for sale inventory, active inventory of all 50 states. And it's actually not even close. It's so odd to see. But that's where we're at. And so if we can get some of the folks that do want to make a move off the sideline, now they're going to also be buyers on the other side. But it creates options and movement in the market. And NAR's forecast right now, just looking at some other forecasts, has quarter one of 2025 coming in at 6% on the 30-year fixed. Averaged out over the quarter, 5.9% in quarter two. And this is a forecast they just released. 5.8% for quarter three and 5.8% for quarter four of next year. I think with certainly sitting, the end of last week, the end of this week here that we just went through at 7%, I think we take, a tick under 6%. For the entire year. We'd all love to see 5.25. We know that what that would do for activity or 5. But you get below 6, you're going to open up. And we've seen that at those points when we've gotten close to 6% activity pop a little bit in those windows. They haven't been open very long as of late, unfortunately.
I like they're not being crazy ambitious with some of these forecasts too. Like I feel, last year, they were getting,
this year they were really
ambitious with the forecast last year, and then and at that time there was really, the Fed wasn't even openly saying they were going to cut rates. I mean, they were thinking, a lot of people were thinking they might, and then we had a couple bad news of inflation.
Right.
But now they actually are cutting rates. I mean, they did it in September. Whether they'll do it again in December depends a lot on the news. But we're starting to move in that direction, and I think this is a pretty reasonable forecast. Like, they're not saying it's going to go down to 4.5, like, because I don't think that would be likely. But 5.9, like, definitely could happen, and it could happen faster. Like, they're saying, I think they maybe have learned from their lesson and realized they're a little overambitious. So they're saying, oh, it'll probably hit 5.9 by the end of the year.
They don't learn from their lesson. They make the same mistake decade over decade. To Chaz's point about potentially trillions of more dollars being generated on loans, that is going to be driven by this activity forecast, if it comes true, by NAR. Right now, existing home sales for the year are at 3.84 million. We're on track for the worst year on existing home sales since 1995. We're in a different population situation in this country than 95, meaning we have more population. We have more ready age home buyers than really ever before. People at prime age of buying a home, it's now. And we're trending at 3.84 million existing home sales for the year, the worst since 1995. But NAR is forecasting that to go up. Okay, existing home sales for quarter one, seasonally adjusted, coming in and their forecast quarter 125 at 4.3 million, 4.4 in quarter two, 4.5 million in quarter three, 4.6 million in quarter four. I actually think those numbers are a little ambitious. We get anywhere close to them, Skelly gets those trillions of dollars of mortgages he's looking for. The market gets a lot of movement, and you know, we're gonna have a real bounce back. We'll get out of that real estate recession. All right, we come back. We've got more on what's going on in the overall economy, how it relates to your Connecticut real estate market. Stay with us. Byron Lazine, Chaz Cook, Brian Skelly. You're listening to Real Estate Radio, 94.9 News Now, stimulating talk.